Hey everyone, it's been a while since I've made a video like this, and recently I've been getting back into music, which is nice. It's been a couple of years since I've done any recording and mixing, and in that time I've kind of learned some shortcuts, or maybe just a process that works a little better for my flow. I've been playing in a group called BIRDWAR, and this is our session here for a song called Slow. And I wanted to run through a few things that help me as I don't have a lot of time, so I'm trying to get these mixes done quick, consistently, but also not sounding terribly. So let's see if we can get this done in, 20, 25 minutes. If it's boring, skip to it. I'll try to put some time codes in here for these 8 steps that I found help keep me on track. Step 1 is going to be cleanup session. As you can see, I've already kind of sliced up my regions. I've organized by color, just so it makes it easier to kind of work with. Maybe if you did this yourself, do it the night before. In the morning, you've got a nice fresh session to work with. But let's start with creating what is called just a fader pan mix, meaning no plugins. Let's just get to town and make it sound decent with just nothing but volume and panning. So here we go. You'll see I'm going to use a lot of shortcuts, and I don't know if I even know how to show those on screen. I'm using this app called Screen Studio. So I don't know. I'll learn. Hopefully my computer doesn't explode. But let's just open up my mixer panel, and you can see that I've got my drums already in a bus. I've got my bass DI and bass amp in a bus, and we've got parallel vocals that I also put in a bus. So let's just start with drums like everybody does, where I've got my overheads. I'm going to pan left and right, and let's just find a section that kind of has a little bit of everything, and loop from there. Maybe we'll just consider this good right here. So I actually like to keep my overhead kind of low to give me a lot of room. As all the tracks come in, it's going to blow up my master bus. So let's kind of start lower than you think you need. Kick and snare, let's just even those out. So let's say that that's where I'm going to start. Of course, we're going to come back to it. And maybe in another video, I'll show how we track this. It's very simple, just 4 mic drum placements. I think I've got some claps over here. Let's bring in some claps and tambourine. Okay, let's just get those claps in here. This is kind of cool. It's like one of those little scratch and reveal, right? You don't know what the song sounds like until we get to that point. So all right. See, I'm just going to try to move fast. Do I have bells? I do have bells. Way over here. Let's see what those sound like. I've only got one of them, so I'm going to make a decision to pan it one way or the other. I'll probably move it once we get to the guitars, because I'm sure the bells and the guitars, I don't want them to step on each other. So, all right. Let's see. Let's go back to our, I guess this is a good place for bass. I'm going to put that at 100%. We track this with bass amp and bass DI. And so I like to say our bassist, my friend Matthew Ham, he has a chuggle. And a lot of that chuggle in his style comes from the bass amp and just the way he processes it. And the bass DI is nice to blend in for clarity as needed. So I'm just going to start with that at 100. Let's call that good there. And again, we'll come into processing. I'll put some compression, EQ, and it'll clean up that bass. But I like blending the DI into the amp rather than the amp into the DI. Everybody's got their own process. This works for me. So we've moved across the spectrum again. Drum, bass, I think like a pyramid, work our way up sonically. Now we get to the guitars, and I have 3 guitars and a solo. So let's see how all 3 of these can work together. Let's start with guitar 1. Let's see what guitar 2 is doing. There's a lot to be said about panning. I still don't know the right amount. I know some people say don't ever pan hard because it makes the stereo sound narrower. It's just a taste, I guess. Guitars, I've rarely actually panned hard overheads. It depends on how focused the drum sound is. If it's kind of open, I'll pan them hard, all the way to the edge. In this song, it's actually kind of busy, so I don't want to pan it too hard. I've just found that it makes it confusing and spins your head around sometimes. Percussion, of course, you want those to be on the far end of the panning spectrum. Listen to these in isolation. Okay, and what do we got for this other guitar? Oh, that's kind of, I think it's just the same as this. Maybe we'll do something like this. What's cool too is I've stepped away from the song for long enough that I feel like I have fresh enough ears. Like I said, this surprised me. I forgot that we tracked this, and so I'm excited to see how I'm going to work with this. Guitar solo. Let's see what happens with this. Just keep that in the center. All right, let's see. We're 7 minutes in. I don't want to waste everybody's time. Vocals. I double track these. Let me see if I can isolate a spot. You like royalty. Thought you would run away far from the Baltic Sea. So it's the same performance. It's just the Elliott Smith kind of wall of sound, double it up. I've also found that if these are hard pan, they sound a little strange. About 35 I found it's been at my happy place recently. 35-ish. And again, I max these out just so I have unity gain and use this as my master volume for the vocals. And now that we've got everything in, I'm just going to kind of move across the tracks and try to balance things by ear. And I think we've got a good section to kind of to loop over while we do this. And I'm actually going to do something here. I don't know if it's going to translate on headphones, but when I do an overall balance, I like to keep it low in the output because, of course, I forgot the name. It's the Haas effect, one of these psychological audio things where it sounds better when it's louder, right? And so you turn it down, and I feel like I can hear more objectively. Especially for vocals, this is nice. Okay, let's call that like I said, let's come back here. Let's call that my fader mix. And so we're 9 minutes in. And now I'm going to take my fader mix and find a mix bus. Now, the mix bus, right, is your very end. In the old days, that would be a part of your mixer console where kind of everything gets routed into a stereo feed. And I like adding a compression, a little bit of processing on this before adding individual tracks because sometimes you add too much individual processing, and when you get to your master bus, it just blows up. So if you can get it sounding as good as possible here, you're going to be able to hear the performance a little better, I found. And again, I'm going to cheat. I've got a bunch of kind of things in here that I've been speeding along. The first, I have a gain, and you'll see why I do this later, and I turn it off to start with. And I have a master bus compressor. This is a very famous one. Waves makes this plugin Universal Audio makes this. I feel like Slate, everybody's got a version of this. And what I'm going to try to do is find my threshold where I can at least hit right about 4 dB and not much more. And you can see why I've had this gain, because sometimes you got to just kill everything a little bit. Okay, so I feel like I like that. I've got my limiter, which I use at the very end when I bounce, so I'm going to turn that off. And of course the multimeter. This is nice to be able to kind of see the spectrum. You know, if you see anything standing out, you're going to be giving your mastering engineer a headache. So that's just kind of nice to keep on there. So really all I'm doing is I've got this gain to take everything down a little bit, and this SSL comp just to kind of kiss it with a little bit of compression. So they call it the glue, right? Just glue it all together. I don't know. Let's use all the gimmicky terms. It's warm, it's saturated, and it glues. So there we go. In my old Tascam days, I would have shipped this and put it on tape, sold it to friends. We'd be done, but we're not. So let's go over and do some processing now. We are now on step 4. Let's do some individual track processing. We're at 11 minutes, 30 seconds. Man, look at us. We're moving along. And again, with all these, I've kind of, when we released our first single, we took our time with that to make sure we got the sound right that we really liked. And then I went through and I just made channel strip save states and just different plug-in presets that are going to work across this entire project that we're recording. Sorry, I'm smacking the microphone. And so it helps me, move things along. So in here, I've got my BIRDWAR drum API. I think this is the one I like. Let's just confirm it. Should have, nope, I've got too many things on there. Let's do just drum bus. It should just have my API and, oh no, did I not save this channel strip? This will be a sad day. Let's just hope this is it. I got a compressor and not a channel strip. So no, we don't. So let's do something here. I actually have the Vision API channel strip. This, you're going to see me use this a lot. I've been, like everybody else, been a plugin junkie, spent too much money for stuff that I end up never using. And when I got this just last year, it's primarily going to be what you see me using. I feel like just the detents in these selections, it kind of locks you into settle, which I think is a lot of art, right? Is limitations are actually better for you. If these EQs went to every frequency under the sun, I'd get confused, abundance of choice, and I don't make a choice that's good. So these have been helpful for me. And I do have I must have it in the non-native version. Anybody who's used Universal Audio, this might be confusing to you too. It is to me 100%. There is one that runs on your card, your UAD interface, and one that runs on your CPU. And I have to use a little bit of both. I don't know. I'm talking too much. Drum bus. Okay, so let's turn off the EQ. Let's just get this pumping a little bit on the compressor. You can take a look at my settings here. Maybe pause it. I don't want to talk too much about it other than just the fact that it's got a really slow release and a really fast attack, right? I think that's what a lot of people like on your drum bus. And I'm just going to try to get this, maybe -3 dB on the threshold here. I'm going to start there because I know that as I add in my other processing, that's going to just hit it a little harder. And on my EQ here for the drum, what do I have? I've got a little bit of compression on top of the compression, so you kind of get 2 stages, one light, one also light. I've got my EQ on. And again, I'm sure there's plenty of videos out there that explain each of these little parts of this API Vision channel strip. I'm primarily using the compression and the EQ on these. A little bit of brightness at the top, the shelf. I like to cut a little bit right where the snare gets muddy and weird. And since I'm not miking my toms, I found that my toms also mud up if I don't cut this 800 right here. The rest of the settings you can kind of hear. Let's hear that without the compression and EQ. Okay. Yeah, you can hear it pump a little bit. So we'll come back and dial that back in a minute. I've also got my 2 overheads. I'm going to set this one to my overhead setting and just set it and forget it. Again, I'm lightly compressing it. A little bit of shine. Down here I'm going to bring in my low cut, or my high pass, I guess is what it is, and just get rid of some of that bottom end. Duplicate that to my other overhead because they're meant to be buddies, stereo buds. So let's listen to that. Now it's hollow in the right way. I feel like there's a joke in there somewhere. Okay, now the kick is a fun one. Do I have this kind of laid out? Maybe not. It doesn't really matter. I like adding 2 things to this. And again, you can see I'm kind of doing light passes. I found less plugins you can use, the more you can kind of keep the feel, as long as you tracked it right, is what they say. R bass, you're going to see me use this on 2 things, the bass and the kick drum. This is incredible. And I like, I don't know, I just like what it does. You can set the frequency, so you have to make a decision because you don't want your bass and your kick drum to be at the same. So I've set this one usually at about 60 or 70, and it does not go that low. Oh, it's just being tricky with me. My computer's going to explode. I know it. Okay, so my kick, I have a preset. Let's look at this. It's got compression and again EQ, and you can see that I'm doing some pretty radical cuts at 800 again. Bringing in my beater at about 5K, like the click from the kick drum, and again I'm just boosting this with a, what do they call it, a bell curve rather than the shelf, right about 50. So let's see what that does. That's a little bit much. Now, it's going to sound all right here in just a second. Let's put in a little bit of R bass, and this does some crazy things. So let's turn it down. Okay, so if I bring that back in, all right, let's move on. Again, a lot of these, they start to work together. If you spend too much time in isolation, you'll go insane. I've seen it. Many men have gone to sea after spending too much time processing their tracks. Never to be seen again. Snare, let's see what we've got here. We got a little bit of low pass, high pass. I always get confused with them, sorry. To get rid of the kick drum, a little bit of compression, just kind of kiss it a little bit. And again, I'm going to pull out that crack at 3K. A little bit of sizzle, and again, just a little bit of mud reduction. Let's see what that sounds like. Turn it off. I like it. Let's go back to my whole set. I've got way too much compression going on here. Which way am I going? There we go. All right, and the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some reverb to my snare. I like the chroma verb, and I think I've got a preset in here called snare reverb. Look at this. And 12, it depends on the song, right? If it's a slower song, give it a longer, more reverb wetness on there, you know, ratio between the dry and the wet. This one's kind of a faster. Right, if I did that, that's terrible. Unless you're in one of those TikTok emo bands. Now, if you can time it right, it'd be nice if the reverb died before that next beat. I think we're up there. I mean, I'm not going to get too picky. Let's call that good there. I'm going to come back to the claps and the bells once I have the bass dialed in, because I want the drum and bass to work together first. What do I do here? I don't think I had the preset for this, or maybe I do. Oh, that's the wrong one. But I do know that I'm going to want this API Vision. I know I'm going to want a Logic compressor. Not stereo. Oops. So you're going to see here that because I put it on bus, it automatically thinks it's a stereo bus. This is mono. I'm just summing these basses together. Nothing fancy. So here we go. Mono. I'm going to save some DSP resources on that. Dynamics compressor. And I'm going to want an R bass. I'm just kind of going shopping here for a second. Just getting a little greedy. Let's turn things off. Let's start with my preset. I know I've got my preset in here. Bass. Let's turn things off to make sure I kind of got them right. So bass is going to do a high pass just to get rid of some of the low mud if it exists. You know, cars going by, who knows. A little bit of compression. And again, I just want a little bit. You can see here, you know, about 3. That sounds about right. And EQ. Get some of that chuggle. Maybe 2.5 is the chuggle. I have to listen to some Credence to kind of confirm that. But I think that's where it's at. See, I'm not doing much. It's just enough to make it cleaner. I'm not trying to sculpt it. I mean, some people want to sculpt it with EQ and with post-processing. In this case, I kind of just want to capture what we had and make it sound cool. Not too many studio tricks. So what do I do here? I'm going to do a VCA. It's like an old DBX compressor. Get rid of my gain. Now, the key is going to be here in this distortion. This is something I learned recently it's more of saturation than distortion. But I'm going to at least dial in a compressor that's workable. Oh, it's not turned on. There we go. I don't want too much. There's about 3, and I'm going to make up by about 3. And now I'm going to go to soft. You see how it adds? It doesn't really make it louder. It just brings in a little sparkle. Without. Let's do it with. Yeah, I like that. Like we talked about with the R bass, if I chose 60 on the kick, let's choose, actually, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to go to about 100 on the bass. Oh, why is it so laggy? I do this all on a MacBook Air. This thing's going to just start catching on fire here. I know it. So let's do 80 and 100. That way they're not stepping on each other and it's not too low. So let's do the bass, R bass. Come on, give me some beats. Yeah, and again, who knows what Waves does? They've got some magicians working for them, doing some incantations in here, but it's good. I like it, but I don't overuse it. Just a little bit on kick, a little bit on bass. Makes it sound rock and roll. So let's do bass and drum. what I'm doing here, I'm just turning, I feel like it's over compressed for some reason. I think my preset must have been for a quieter session, maybe the song before. All right. Now, let's go back and do some clippity claps and some tambourines. These are historically hard to do right. Tambourines sound terrible. Listen to this. And these clippity claps, when we get to them. See, it just sounds like somebody's dropping some books. So what I've found to do is use the Sound Toys Decapitator. You know, everybody wants to decapitate something. Let's just start with one, and I'm just going to wholesale copy it to the other ones once I kind of get. And what Decapitator does, it's like what we did with the compressor, where it has that distortion feature, and it's just saturation. It just kind of muddies things up in a good way. Think, Strokes. I think of like Feist's vocal performance, very saturated. Not really distorted, but saturated. So where are my clippity claps? Let's go to there. See how terrible that is? I can turn down my high end a little bit, give it a little bit of cut. And without it, I think this is a better bypass. See that? It's like almost like a snap. It's like a gun blast. That sounds cool. Maybe too much. Yeah, that's rad. Let's do 2 of those. Let's isolate both of them. Yeah, I'm in. I'm 100% in. That's the one. I'm going to do the same thing on the tambourine. Oops. Copy it over. Let's loop that part and see what the tambourines do. Holy mackerel. That's nonsense. And see this? I don't have to even add an EQ plugin, right? I want to keep it super simple. I think on my last couple sessions, I never added more than 3 plugins per channel. So just this is nice to simplify things. I can use this as my EQ. Let's call it good. Copy it. Add back my other tambo. Let's listen to all those percussions together. Yeah, it's terrible. I love it. It's like an old Elephant 6 recording. Bells. I don't know if the bells really do much. I don't have to add much, I don't think. Just got my loop going. Z will put everything in focus there. You know what? Just because everybody gets a decapitator today. 5 for 1 special. Good enough for me. Let's just do bass over to drum and solo that. I like it. I like it a lot. Where are we at? Guitars. Let's go back to this guy here. And we have the section of solos that'll be nice to kind of loop while we dial these in. And again, I'm only going to use the Vision. And I have 2 presets. And one's a little darker, one's a little lighter. This was my darker one. And again, it's just a good starting point, and then I'll dial it in from there. Let's take off my EQ. Let's focus only on this high pass to start with. Maybe like 130 sounds good. Let's add a little bit of compression. Like 2 maybe touching 3 every now and then. You know, electric guitar is already compressed. I mean, that's the whole nature of these clipping circuits and these overdrives, is just to naturally compress it. And the way it cuts off the high end is what the distortion sounds like. And I'm sure somebody who actually understands that's going to be like, actually. But you know what? These are the stories I tell myself. I think I'm going to start with that. It's not too bright. It doesn't really take any attention. It just clears up some of the nonsense. Actually, I'm going to leave it right where it was. That was right about 300 is where that little mud was picking up. Let's move on to guitar 2. Same thing. I'm going to put the API in almost everything. It's my buddy. And just to make it a little different, because these are kind of, I guess, my 2 main guitars, guitar 1, guitar 2. Let's do the same thing. Let's start with my low pass, high pass. Let's center that so I can hear better. And that one's super gross, so I'm going to cut it a little bit higher. Compression. Yeah, and I must have recorded this a lot lower, so that threshold helps. EQ. Remember what I said about limitations? It's nice, you know, I'm only going to boost either 5 or 7, and if it doesn't work, I just don't boost it. So I kind of like having that restriction in this EQ. And of course, if you're not like me, you can push this tight button, and then you get like the crazy town. That's great. I feel like I'm in an 80s funk band. I don't know why. All right, we're at 32 minutes, and you've probably fast forwarded a couple times. We're going to keep moving along. Guitar 3, same thing, API strip. And I think this one's mainly just for atmosphere. Like, just, it doesn't do anything different. I'm just going to go with defaults. I'm going to give it more high end because I'm going to put it lower in the mix, but I want it to sparkle just a little bit. Okay, I like it. Moving on, guitar solo. This one's going to take a little more work, so I'm going to put on my API, and I'm also going to put on a Logic compressor. And again, for guitars, I really like using the VCA, like the DBX 160 clone. You know, this is, you know, what is it? The Studio FET. I mean, they just emulate everything, right? So this guy's going to try to be like an SSL compressor. This is nice, simple. And again, I'm going to use that distortion to pull out the lead guitar. But not yet. We'll come back to it. Let's give this the guitar 1 preset. Yeah. You know, I want a little more low end. That's good. Let's put some compression. Just a little bit, because I'll add the real compressor later that kind of, you know, tightens it up. Now, since my EQ's pretty dramatic here, I'm going to lower my output altogether. kind of dig that. Master compressor. And this one you can go up to 4 to 5 because you treat it almost like a lead vocal, right? It's gonna want to be pretty consistent volume, so you can compress it a little bit more. And I found that this one doesn't sound too compressed, even if you push it hard. Let's listen to those guitars together. Good enough to move on. Vocals. This is the very last guy, right? Same thing. Do a Vision compressor. Let's do a, what do they call it? The LA2A. There we go. The gray one? I don't know. They give me too many options. I forget which one I like. This is the one I like. We'll come back to that. Lead vocal. There we go. What do I got on here? I've got EQ, compression, high pass, of course. Let's find a spot of the song where I'm singing. Everyone treated you like royalty. Thought you would run away far from the Baltic Sea. That's pretty good. Everyone treated you like royalty. And again, this one, my main compressor is going to be that LA2A, but I want to take off about 2 or 3 on this guy. Everyone treated you like royalty. Everyone treated you like royalty. Okay. Everyone treated you like royalty. Thought you would run away far from the Baltic Sea. There we go. And again, I'm not going to go over all the EQ settings, but you can look at them, pause it if you want to copy them. LA2A. You can smash these guys pretty well, which I like. Everyone treated you like royalty. Let's try to get to between 5 and 7. Everyone treated you like royalty. Thought you would run away far from the Baltic Sea. You were making kids dance. I like that. And on the individual tracks, I'll actually just add a de-esser, which is in my... There it is. Which one do I like? Oh boy, I don't even remember. So take one, isolate it. Everyone treated you like royalty. Thought you would run away far from the Baltic Sea. Everyone treated you like... Everyone treated you like royalty. Everyone treated you like royalty. You'll see it's reducing the, the S's, the P's, the loud sibilances. Everyone treated you like royalty. As long as it doesn't sound terrible, just enough. And again, I'll probably come back. Of course, I know I'm going to come back and tidy it up just a little bit. Everyone treated you like royalty. Everyone treated you like royalty. Thought you would run away far from the Baltic Sea. You were making kids dance show after show, and sleeping under a bridge in St. Martin's Canal. All right, we're at 40 minutes and I got to go to bed. But let's do this last step here. I call it the last step because it's the last step that actually takes an amount of time that's quantifiably, something you got to think about. which is the reverb. I usually keep a plate and a room. The idea of a room is to simulate the room that you're playing in. If you already have a great sounding room, don't do it. Try to emphasize your room mics and other things you have set up. But in this case, my room is this room behind me, just the vault of my house, vaulted ceiling of my house. And so I put on a space designer so I can design some space. And I have this Bricasty, was it Studio B that I like? I don't know where I got these samples. You can find them on the internet. I hope it's legal. I'm pretty sure it is. If not, I'm sorry, and I will pay for it. I'll do some research afterwards. I actually don't know where I got these. I've had these for years. The Bricasty M7 impulse responses. And let's just put like the snare through it just so I can hear it really well. So let's put the snare through there. So I'm going to make that my room. That's going to be where my room is being played. So I'll get rid of that. And my plate reverb is kind of for my vocals. Everybody uses, oh, this is going to be off screen. That's okay. You'll see it here in a minute. Everybody uses the UAD U40, was it 140 plate? I recently went to the Sound Toys Super Plate. I kind of like it. It does all the same things I found, but the big knob into some of the little things. I feel like the interface on the 180 might be a little small. I'm becoming an old man. Go away. Go away. Nope. You're wrong. See, it heard me complaining. Let's put my vocal through that so I can hear it. And again, add the time to the performance. Okay. And this is one of my favorite tips, is to put a compressor after it. And again, you can just use the stock one because this one's completely unflavored. And you can use my vocal bus 3, is that right? As the side chain, so it'll only compress when my vocal's doing a thing. Now, what this is doing is when I'm singing and I'm talking, right, I don't want my reverb to muddy it up, so it kind of compresses the reverb while it's singing, and then it will slowly release when I stop, so you can hear the reverb tail start to bloom. At least that's the idea, right? So if I do this. Everyone treated you like royalty. Do you hear that tail? Thought you would run away far from the Baltic Sea. I can probably do a little more. You were making kids dance show after show. Yeah, look at that. That's as good as Norah Jones. Ain't gonna get much better than that. I'm going to do something here on this track in particular. Remember we like that plug in the super muddy, destroy the earth decapitator? I'm going to do that on the lead vocals. I feel like this song could benefit from that. Everyone. Transistor style. Again, I don't know what all these do. I think this is the transistor style saturation. Everyone treated you like royalty. Let's muddy it pretty well. Thought you would run away far from the Baltic Sea. You were making kids dance show after show. And then turn down the mix. And sleeping under a bridge in St. Martin's Canal. Now there's that one phrase that sounds like a trumpet. I want to see if I can dial the mix so that trumpet sound is right. Everyone treated you like royalty. I think it's this next line. Thought you would run away far from the Baltic Sea. I lied, it's not that line. You were making kids dance show after show. That was the line, and I feel like that mix is right. Let's listen to it in context. Everyone treated you like royalty. Thought you would run too much reverb. Okay, now I'm just going to pick a couple instruments that I feel needs to go into the room bus. If everything goes in the room bus, it sounds like nothing is in the room bus. I feel like that's from The Incredibles, right? I think that's what he said. So I'm going to choose my drum overheads, actually. I'm not going to do the whole bus. I'm just going to do the overheads. Send the overheads to the room. Settle on mid fives there. That's good. Again, I'm trying to move fast. It's bedtime. Claps, tambo. I'm not going to add any reverb. Maybe the bells. And again, I'm not even going to listen to it. I'm just going to set it and forget it. Like a Ronco dryer. Bass. Nope. Let's choose one guitar to put into a room. Which guitar will get that privilege? Definitely that one. I think that's kind of the one that drives the energy of the song. So let's put that into a room. And I found that the moment you start to hear it, you've gone a little too far. I just want to feel it. I don't really want to hear it. I'm not going for gimmicks here. And the guitar solo, I'm going to share with my vocal reverb, because conceptually I think of the lead and the vocal, these are the narrative driving elements, right? And so they should sound like they know each other. So I'm not going to put that in the room, I'm going to put that on the plate. And because I'm not singing, right, that compressor over here is going to also, actually, you know what? It won't, because I sidechained it to my vocal. I don't know what I'm going to do there. I wonder if I can get creative or just set this one. I'm just going to set my send a little higher because the compressor is going to be closed at that point. Now let's just listen to the whole thing, adjust a couple things, and then I'm going to call it good right after there and, show you how I bounce it and things like that. Hand claps again. Where'd they go? I'm going to do my vocal leveling one more time and do that while really quiet. And I promise we'll wrap up here in 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. Thanks for sticking with me, everybody. So again, I'm going to drop this down really low. I'm not going to talk so I don't blow your eardrums out, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it low as maybe I can even hear it, and then I'm going to adjust my lead vocal at that volume. So quiet. Now let's turn it up, listen to it again. All right, so I'm going to call that good enough to bounce and send to the band. And just let's do something here. Let's turn everything off and listen to it. I lied about that. Let's keep on my main bus there, of course. And then I'll come back and turn these all back on. Let's listen to this. No plugins, no processing. Turn everything back on. I dig it. I'm going to come back later and work on my bass compression and my overall drum bus compression. I feel like it pumps too much. You know, you've sometimes heard that. Sometimes you want that pumping effect of the compressor just blooming, and I don't want it. So I'll come back and I'll try to fine tune that. I might have to do a little bit of automation, which again is the next step. And it could be tedious if you want. I rarely actually do automation. I know it's terrible. In this case, I might, just because I want to find where that drum, pumps and try to work around that. Final mix bus. Let's go look back over here. Make sure that I'm not doing anything wild with my frequencies. And I'm seeing this little scoop right here, which is telling me that I'm being a little too aggressive on my mid-range. And after I sleep on this and come back, I might come back and bring back some mid-range to my guitars, because you can see the scoop right here. And maybe I'll find the Tape Op article. Years ago, they had this one. It's all in this article, all about, it's all in the mid-range, right? That's really where a song is. And, in the 70s disco, they just scooped it all out. Grunge, they kind of brought it back. But I feel like having a strong mid-range is really important in modern bedroom rock. So I'm going to come back and bring that back. But everything else looks fine. I'm going to put on my adaptive limiter, which is just so I don't blow things up. Just put it at 0. So if anything goes over 0, smush it down. But I'm going to work with these two here. This is my gain, this is my master bus, and I'm just going to make sure that I can set my gain so that it works well with the threshold here, because I find that this is very sensitive. And that's looking fine, but I'm going to see what happens when it gets louder. Let's call that good. And again, it's going to sound way better once we bring it into mastering. And I'll make a video about how we do mastering. We use a Lander, which is great. It's AI, and I don't care anymore. It sounds great. It makes it so much easier. And I've worked with tons of mastering engineers. Some are great. Some cost a lot. And Lander, I feel like, is worth every penny, which isn't much. So I'm going to find where the song begins, set my, what are they called? Indicators. I don't know, loop indicator. Good enough. Let's go to the end. Make sure I'm not cutting anything off. And again, you'll see that part of step 1, which I kind of didn't really show in the video, right? Because that's the tedious part of editing, comping, slicing things out. And I also did my fade outs before the video even started. So I saved a little bit of time there. Oh, see, I'm just now exploding. This is great. I got right to the end of it before my MacBook Air started yelling at me. Let's just call that good. And this is going to be my final bounce down. I will push Control B, get my wave bounce here. And then from there, I'm just going to send it off to Lander. And you might hear it up on the Apple Musics and the Spotify here in a couple of weeks. But yeah, we're at about 55 minutes. It's not a perfect mix. Like I said, I'm going to sleep on it. I'm going to send it to the band and then make some final tweaks tomorrow. But hopefully the whole process should be less than an hour and a half, 2 hours, which to me is exactly what I was looking for. I was looking for a short process that's repeatable, consistent, try to save myself some time with these presets, and hopefully it helps you too. I don't know. This app that I'm using, I'm hoping it's not terrible to watch. I know it does some auto zooms. I apologize for it. And again, in the comments, if you feel so inclined, let me know what worked, what didn't work for you, what you're hoping to learn next, if I have anything to offer. And good luck. See you next time.